In the section number 1 of this course, we covered a very basic understanding of topology and understood the course structure. And from this video onwards, we'll be starting with the section number 2 of this course, modeling a sci-fi pistol. This section will have a total of 3 videos, where in the first video, which is the current one, we'll be making the basic shape of the sci-fi pistol. Then in the next video, we'll be creating the details. And in the video number 3, we'll be finalizing the 3D model of the sci-fi pistol. Coming back to the current video, we'll be discussing about a lot of basic topics related to topology, and with each chapter and section of this course, you will refine your topology skills, building a strong foundation step by step. So to begin with, we have this default Blender layout, and before starting with creating the 3D model of the pistol, we'll first understand about the anatomy of 3D meshes. So 3D meshes consist of 3 main elements: the vertices, the edges, and the polygons. For example, in this default scene, we have this cube added, and if I press tab to enter the edit mode, then you can see here that all these points that make up the 3D model of a cube are basically the vertices of this 3D mesh. So to define the term vertices, or basically vertex, it is the lowest level component that makes up a 3D mesh. The second element is named as an edge. Here in this 3D model, if I press 2, then we'll be able to select the edges of this cube. So to put it in simpler words, an edge is basically a one-dimensional line which simply connects two vertices together. After this, the third element that we have is named as a polygon or a face. For example, in this 3D model, if I press 3, then I'll be able to select the faces of this 3D mesh. So in simple words, a face or a polygon is defined by 3 or more vertices and a closed set of edges. So understanding about the anatomy of 3D mesh was important because we might be using these terms of different elements very often throughout this course. Now coming back to the topic of modeling a sci-fi pistol, let's first create the barrel of the pistol. So let's first delete this cube by pressing X, and now you can look at this image that how exactly the barrel of a pistol looks like. So to create the barrel, we'll be adding a circle in the scene. So press Shift plus A, then go to Mesh and select the circle. After this, suppose you have to rotate this circle in the X-axis by 90 degrees. Then to do this, we have two different approaches. The first approach is simply to go to the edit mode by pressing tab, then press A to select all, and press R, X, type 90 and enter to confirm. This method was the general method that you can use to rotate any object in the scene by simply going to the edit mode. However, if I undo this and go back to the object mode, and now if I rotate this circle in the X-axis by 90 degrees, then in this case we have to do one more step, which is to apply the rotation. And to do this, press Ctrl plus A, then this apply menu will appear, from where you have to select rotation. So whenever you make any changes in the rotation or the scaling of any object while being in the object mode, then you have to apply the rotation or the scaling to that object by pressing Ctrl plus A also. And yes, this is relevant so that the Blender software would become aware of the object's default orientation. This apply step is important for several tools and modifiers in Blender that we'll later on use in the modeling process. Now coming back to the modeling part of the barrel of the pistol, let's first go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and with the circle selected, press tab to enter the edit mode, and to see the vertices of the circle, you have to enable the vertex selection mode. So for this, the shortcut is to press 1 on the keyboard. Then with all the vertices selected, we'll be creating the duplicate by pressing Shift plus T and right click to cancel the movement, then press S to scale it down, and by doing this, we'll be having basically two circles in a single object, where the smaller circle will form the inside of the barrel. Now the outside of the barrel will not be a perfect circle, and as a result, we need to make some changes in the vertices of the outer circle. So first of all, I'll be selecting some vertices on the top, let's say these 3 vertices, and similarly with the shift key holded, let's also select these 3 vertices present on the bottom. Now delete them by pressing X. Now after this, I'll be selecting the first half of both the circles, and we'll be deleting them because we'll be using a modifier known as the mirror modifier to create the other half on its own. Now another thing to notice here is that currently I have not selected this particular vertex in the middle, which means that if I press X and select delete vertices, will not be deleted. However, if I undo this and along with the selected vertices, if I now select the middle vertices also and press X to delete them, then they will also get deleted with the remaining ones. But doing this will not give us the desired result of a semicircle. So I'll undo this again, and to deselect the middle vertices, simply hold on Ctrl, left click and drag the cursor like this. Now delete the selected vertices, and now to create the other side by using a modifier, let's go to the modify properties, then click on add modifier, and in the generate category select the mirror modifier, and here you will notice that the mirror modifier will duplicate the half of an object across its axis. And the best part about using the mirror modifier is that if I try to make any changes on any one side of the model, then the similar changes will also get applied on the opposite side. And by using this technique, we now have to model just one side of the pistol, and then Blender will automatically fill the other side due to the mirror modifier. As a result, it will allow us to save a lot of time in the modeling process. Now before moving forward, we need to turn on the clipping option in the mirror modifier. By default, it is turned off, which means that if I select any particular vertex and press G to move it, then it will cross it, and to prevent this from happening, we have to turn on the clipping option. With this turned on, if I now try to move the vertex across the center line, or basically the Z axis, then we'll not be able to do so, and it will get clipped. And this is a very useful way to ensure that the vertices of one side do not cross the center line of an object. Now after this, we'll be working on creating some details for the barrel. So I'll select this vertex on the top, press E to extrude it up in the Z axis, and yes, before continuing, it's not really compulsory to follow the exact same procedure that I am doing while creating the details of the model. If you want, you can keep your model very simple and basic even without all these specific details. But for now, I'll continue on creating the details. So with this vertex selected now, I'll extrude it in the x-axis like this, and then again extrude it down in the z-axis. Then to close the geometry, I'll extrude this vertex in the x-axis like this. Then I'll select these two vertices on the top, slightly move them down in the z-axis, and now it looks perfect. In a similar way, let's now create the details for the bottom part. So I'll select this vertex over here, extrude it down in the z-axis, and then extrude it in the x-axis. And here you can also notice that because of the mirror modifier, whatever changes that I did on the right side of the geometry automatically got applied on the left hand side. Now after the detailing, we'll come to the most important part, which is to fill the faces of the geometry. So suppose I press 2 for the edge select mode and select these two vertices on the top. Then to fill the face between these edges, the shortcut is to press the F key. By doing this, we'll get a face filled in between the selected edges. Similarly, you can try this with other pair of edges also, like with these two edges selected. If I press F, then we'll have a face filled over here. Now before filling the rest of the faces, let's understand one important concept. So if I press 1 for the vertex selection mode, then here you can see that the faces that we have just created are made up of 4 vertices in total, and any face in the geometry made up of either 4 vertices or 4 edges is termed as a quad. So this particular face is a quad, and similarly this face is also a quad as it is made up of 4 vertices or 4 edges. But now if I select multiple edges together, for example, let's select 3 edges on each side and then press F to fill the face, then we'll again get an individual face created, but this time with more than 4 vertices, and such faces have a special name, n-gons. So n-gons basically mean those faces which are made up of or formed by more than 4 vertices or more than 4 edges. Now there are both advantages as well as disadvantages of using n-gons in 3D geometry. However, we'll be understanding them in detail later on in this course. But till then, let's first complete this process of filling all the faces of the 3D model of the barrel. So over here on the top, I'll select these 4 vertices, press F to fill a face, then I'll select these vertices over here, and with these 6 vertices selected, if I directly press F to fill the faces, then we'll get an n-gon made up of 6 vertices or 6 edges. However, if you want to have 2 separate faces here, then we need to use a tool known as bridge edge loops. So to use it, I'll first undo by pressing Ctrl plus Z, then press 2 for the edge select mode, select these 4 edges over here, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Then right click and select bridge edge loops. By doing this, we'll get 2 separate faces created over here. So whenever you want a single face created with more than 4 vertices, then you can use the method to directly fill the face by pressing F, and this will result in the formation of n-gon. However, if you want to create quad faces, then you can use the method of the bridge edge tool. Now let's continue filling the rest of the faces, and for now, it's completely up to you if you want to create n-gons or quads in this geometry, because right now you only know the very basic meaning of the two, as we'll understand about their advantages and disadvantages later on in the modeling process. So for now, I'll select all the edges over here by holding the shift button, then right click and apply bridge edge loops, then select these 4 vertices, then press F to fill the faces, and after this we'll come to the bottom part where if you notice closely, we have a small problem. We only have these 3 vertices to join together, but that would not result in formation of a quad or n-gon. Now as a solution, some of of you might think that we can select these 4 vertices together and fill the face. And if you thought this, then this method is totally correct. There is nothing wrong in this method. But now suppose I want to create a face with exactly 3 vertices. So to explain this, I'll first undo by pressing Ctrl plus Z, then select these 3 vertices over here. And if I simply press the F key to fill the faces, then here we have a new face created with just 3 vertices. And whenever you create a face with 3 vertices, it is termed as trie. So to summarize everything, tries mean the faces having exactly 3 vertices or 3 edges, quads mean the faces having exactly 4 vertices or 4 edges, and n-gons mean the faces having more than 4 vertices or 4 edges. Now coming back to the part of filling the faces, I'll be selecting these 3 vertices, press F to form another trie face, and at last select the remaining 4 vertices, press F to fill the face to form a quad. And with this, we have now filled all the faces of the geometry. Some of them are quads, some are tries, and one of them is even an n-gon. Now to give this some thickness, press A to select all, and we'll extrude it in the y-axis. Let's extrude it till this point. After this, let's go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad to take a look at how the model looks. I'll move it slightly in the y-axis to increase its length and then press Alt plus Z to enable the X-ray mode. Now the front part of a barrel has to be angled, and as a result, we have to cut through the mesh, for which we'll be using a tool known as the knife tool. To access it, simply press K and this will turn our cursor into a knife. And now if I left click here on the top edge, then move the cursor and take it to the bottom edge and then left click again, then press enter to confirm, then this will basically connect the 2 points together by adding these vertices in between. However, if I change the angle, then you would notice that on the inside part, the knife tool did not work, meaning that it actually didn't cut through the mesh but only worked for the outer part. But in this case, since we need to create a slant so that we can delete the front part, we need to cut through the mesh. And to achieve this result, I'll first undo this by pressing Ctrl plus Z, then again press K for the knife tool, and before doing anything else, press C to enable the cut through mode. And now if I left click on the top edge, then move the cursor, take it to the bottom edge, left click again, and press enter to confirm, then this time, on changing the angle, it is clearly visible that the knife tool has worked properly in cutting through the mesh, and that's because we used the cut through mode, which we enabled by pressing C. Now moving ahead, we only have to keep the new vertices selected, but over here, these vertices on the back part are also selected, and as a result, to deselect them, let's first enter the X-ray mode, then hold down the control button, let's select all these vertices that we wanted to deselect, and now it looks perfect. After this, we have to rip apart these vertices that we just created. This will allow us to create an angled front part of the barrel because we'll be deleting this first part on the front side. To explain it practically, we need to rip apart these newly selected edges or the vertices. And to do this thing, the shortcut is to press V, and this will enable the rip region tool. For now, I'll click the right mouse button to cancel the movement, and if I slightly press the G key to move the selected vertices in the y-axis, then over here you can see that the rip region tool that we accessed by using the V key simply created a duplicate of these vertices that we selected and allowed us to rip apart the mesh. After this, let's deselect all the vertices, and now we have to select this front part. So with my cursor over it, I'll press L, and to delete this, press X and select delete vertices. And by doing this, we now have an angled front part that we desired to create. Now after this, the next step that we'll be doing is to again fill the faces for the front part. And to do it easily, in the same way that we did for the back part, I'll go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and now we have a clear visual of the back part of the barrel that we can use as a reference to fill the faces. For example, if I select these 4 faces on the top and press F to fill the faces, then you can see that they're properly filled with reference to the back part of the barrel. Now let's do the same thing for the remaining faces also. Just select the vertices, press F to fill the faces, and keep repeating this same step again and again. Now the basic shape of the Sci-fi pistol's barrel is almost ready. However, to give it a natural appearance, I'll select it, then right click and select Shade Auto Smooth. This will smooth out the barrel a little bit depending upon the angle value in the Shade Auto Smooth. In most of the cases where you are working with hard 3D surface modeling, the Shade Auto Smooth angle of around 30 degrees to 45 degrees works the best. So in this case also, I'll be keeping this angle at 30 degrees. Now the next important thing that we'll be learning in hard surface modeling modeling will be to create some flat faces out of curved surfaces. Let's suppose I have these three faces and currently they are not at all flat. They are curved due to the structure of the gun's barrel. But suppose I want to make them completely flat, and to do this thing you simply have to press the S key to scale them down, then press X and in the numpad enter 0 and press enter to confirm. By doing this, we'll be having completely flat faces. Now you just have to keep one small thing in your mind while using this technique, which is that after pressing the S key, which axis is to be selected, the X axis, Y axis or the Z axis. As a shortcut, you can remember it in this way, that these faces are running along the Y axis and you have to choose that axis while scaling down, which is perpendicular to the Y axis, and in this case it is the X axis. And yes, in almost all the cases you will be using this technique either in the X axis or the Y axis, so you don't need to worry about the Z axis because that one is used in very rare cases. So particularly in this case, I'll press S for scaling, then press X and in the numpad enter 0 and press enter to confirm. You can even move these three selected faces slightly in the X axis to give the 3D model a better appearance. Also, with the faces selected, you can press R to rotate them, but in this particular case, I won't be making any further changes for the selected faces. Now even though currently our 3D model looks fine, however, it does not have the kind of realism that we expect in a perfect 3D model to be. And this is where the beveling process comes into play. We'll be using the bevel tool to smooth out some of these edges and to give our model a realistic and natural appearance. So to do this thing, I'll be selecting some of the edges. So first I'll press 2 for the edge select mode, then I'll select this edge over here, then with the shift key hold select this one, and if you notice closely, I'm only selecting those edges which are around the detailings or kind of the extrusions that we have created in the 3D model. Now it's completely optional for you that for which particular edges you want to apply the bevel effect. However, it is suggested that wherever you have the extrusions or some detailing, you should be applying the bevel tool in order to add realism to the model. Apart from this, I'll also select this edge over here and then press Ctrl plus P to apply the bevel tool, and then you can use the scroll wheel to increase the number of segments and press enter to confirm. The bevel tool gives our 3D model a slightly rounded and a natural look. Now I'll again go to the edit mode, and I think that we should be having the bevel effect around this particular part of the 3D model as well. But before doing that, let's observe one more thing that will make you understand about the difference in usage of quads, tris and n-gons. So if you remember, while filling these faces, I advised you to keep some of the faces as quads, that is with 4 vertices, and others with n-gons like over here, and some with tris, that is 3 vertices. And if I press Ctrl plus Z to remove the bevel effect, then here on the top we had the quads, and at the bottom these 2 faces were the tris. But now if I redo by pressing Ctrl Shift Z, then because of applying the bevel tool, you will notice that the quads have now turned into n-gons, and even the tris, that is the faces which had 3 vertices, are also converted into n-gons. And this is exactly how Blender does the beveling process. However, this is not exactly some disadvantage or some problem that the quads or the tris have, but this is simply a feature of the Blender's bevel tool. Now let's also apply the bevel tool on one of the edges adjacent to this n-gon so that we can see exactly what will happen in case of n-gons. So I'll press 2 for the edge select mode, select any random edge over here, press Ctrl plus B to randomly apply the bevel tool, then left click, and if I go to the vertex selection mode, then you can notice that previously this particular face was an n-gon, and now also this face will still be classified as an n-gon. So as a conclusion, when you apply the bevel effect, the quads and the tris no longer remain in the original state and will change to n-gons. However, n-gons continue to remain in their original state but with a different number of vertices, and they'll still be n-gons even after the beveling process. For now, I'll press Ctrl Z to undo this, and to give this part a realistic appearance with the bevel tool, I'll press Ctrl R with my cursor over here to add a loop cut, then left click and right click to cancel the movement. Similarly, I'll also add a loop cut at the bottom like this, then select this edge and with the shift key hold it, select this one also. Then press G, X and move it over here, and let's also scale it down in the Z axis to bring them closer. Now with these 2 edges selected, I'll press Ctrl B to apply the bevel tool like this and left click to finalize. Now if I go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, then here you can see that the front faces are actually looking very weird because some of them are simple quads with 4 vertices while others are n-gons, and that too each with different number of vertices. And this is something that we usually avoid in order to get a perfect topology. And as a result, in this case also, we need to have uniformity, and so I'll enable the X-ray mode, select all these vertices or the faces. Now let's change the angle, and because of doing this, the side faces are also selected. So I'll press 3 for the face select mode, then go to the side view, and with the control key holded, I'll deselect all these faces, and by doing this, we'll be having only the front and the back faces selected that we'll be deleting by pressing X and selecting delete faces. Now I'll disable the X-ray mode. After this, we'll be selecting this edge loop by holding the Alt button and left clicking, and then with Alt and the Shift key together holded, we'll be selecting this inner edge loop. But right now, if I try to fill these faces by pressing F, then we'll get this weird result. And this is because while filling the faces, a very important thing is to have a closed edge loop. For example, in this case, this particular half of the model, or basically these edges that we have selected, are not closed or connected to each other. To fix this, I'll simply select this particular edge on the top, and with the Shift key holded, select this one on the inner edge loop. And then to connect them together, press F, and let's do the same thing with the bottom part as well. So I have selected these two vertices, press F, then with the Alt key holded, I'll click here to select the inner edge loop, and then with both the Alt and the Shift key holded, I'll select the outer edge loop. Not just this, with the Shift key holded, let's also select these two edges that we just created, and then press F to fill the face, and here we get this beautiful result. This allowed us to fill a single face with n-gons for this closed edge loop. Now let's do the same thing for the back part of the barrel also. So first, I'll be selecting these two vertices on the top with the Shift key holded, press F to fill the faces, and then repeat the same step for the bottom part. Then press Alt and Shift and select the inner edge loop, and similarly also select the outer edge loop. After this, I'll select this edge over here on the top, press F to fill the faces, and this provides us with the perfect front and the back part of the gun's barrel. Now let's return back to the object mode, and in order to get a better view of the 3D model, it is always advised to turn on the cavity option in the viewport shading menu on the top right corner. After this, the next thing that we'll be doing is to create the hand grip and other parts of the gun. So I'll first go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, press Shift A, go to mesh and select a cube. Press G, Y and place it over here. Now let's go to the edit mode. Let's scale it up slightly so that its size is just slightly more than the size of the gun's barrel. After this, I'll be selecting this face at the back, and let's slightly move it in the y-axis like this. Then for the detailing part, I'll be adding a loop cut over here by pressing Ctrl R. Let's move it up, and to give it a proper shape, we'll be working on some details. For example, moving some edges back and forth like this. And yes, it totally depends upon you that exactly what kind of shape you want to give to the hand grip and the other objects. It's not at all compulsory to follow the exact same procedure that I'm following here in the designing part. Now the next thing that I'll do is to select these two faces on the front side, press X to delete them, and then similarly select these two at the bottom and delete them as well. Now moving ahead, I'll be selecting these two edges over here on the top, and I'll scale them down in the X-axis to bring them closer, and similarly I'll also be adding a loop cut for the bottom part. Then select these two edges on the sides of the bottom, scale them down in the X-axis like this, and let's also add a loop cut on this other side. Now press A to select all, and we'll be applying the bevel tool to give this a slightly round and a natural appearance. So with all the edges selected, press Ctrl B and move the cursor away. After this, if I now go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, then here you can see that the shape of this object is not at all symmetrical, and to ensure that the selected object has a symmetry, we need to make some changes in the geometry of the selected object. And here is another tip for you. In almost all of the cases where you want your object to have symmetry, you will be using the mirror modifier. To use it in this case, I'll first select this top and the bottom face with the Shift key holded, then press X to delete them, select delete faces. Now go to the front view, press 1 for the vertex selection mode, press Alt Z for the X-ray mode, and now you have to select either of the two halves of the geometry, that is all the vertices of that half, and we'll be deleting it by pressing X, then delete vertices. And now with the selected half of the object, we'll be creating its other half as per the symmetry by going to the modifier properties, then add modifier, generate, and select the mirror modifier. Now to make this complete, let's go to the edit mode, and before making any changes, do ensure to turn on the clipping option in the mirror modifier. Now press 2 for the edge select mode, select this edge over here, press E to extrude it like this, and left click. Similarly, let's do the same thing for the bottom part also. So I'll select this edge over here. After this, press E to extrude it in the X-axis, and with this, we now have a symmetrical shape for the selected object that we created by using the mirror modifier. Now some of you might be thinking that what exactly was the reason for making this particular pattern for the geometry of the gun's body, and the reason for this is that it will allow us to understand about the proper filling of faces by using n-gons depending upon whether an edge is a flat edge or a curved edge. In order to understand about this in even more detail, we'll be filling the faces for this back part of the gun. So I've switched to the side view, and over here you can see that this back part of the gun looks like this. However, if we study this in detail, you will notice that this particular part on the top is somewhat flat. However, this particular part is kind of creating a curve. Similarly, almost the entire bottom part is again flat. So we can say that the top and the bottom part represent the flat edges, and this middle part, which is slightly curved, represents the curved edges. Now the reason why we understood this concept is that whenever we are using n-gons, they must always be with flat edges. Curved edges are not suitable for using an n-gon, which in this particular example means that while filling this back part of the gun, we have to ensure that all these vertices which are representing the curved region or the curved part always form the quad faces and not the n-gons. And to do this thing, you simply have to go to the back view by pressing Ctrl 1 on the numpad, then press E to extrude them in the x-axis like this, and left click. And by doing this thing, we have now created quad faces with the curved edges. And now if you remember, I just told you that in case of the flat edges, that is the one on the top, we can create n-gons, which means that if I hold on the Alt button, then left click over here to select this entire edge loop and directly press F to fill the faces, then this will provide us with a face which is an n-gon, and it is completely normal to use an n-gon in this case. Now similarly, this bottom part is also more or less flat and not curved, meaning that we can again create an n-gon with these flat edges. So hold down the Alt button, then left click here to select the entire edge loop, press F to fill the faces, and here it is completely done. As a conclusion, whenever you're filling the faces, just remember a very basic rule. If you're having flat edges, then you simply have to select them and fill the faces with n-gons. But if you're having the curved edges, then you need to take care of the fact that you should not be using n-gons to fill the faces, but instead you should prefer the quads. Now making the judgment whether some particular vertices are forming flat edges or curved edges can be difficult for some of the people. And here is a very simple trick that you can use to overcome this problem. And the trick is to apply the bevel tool. To see this practically, I'll first press 2 for the edge select mode, then hold on the Alt key, select this edge loop over here, then with the Alt and Shift key hold it, select this part also, and select this one as well. Now with this entire edge loop selected, press Ctrl V to apply the bevel tool, and just keep a little higher offset, and then left click to finalize. Now if you're getting perfect results like the one on the top and the one at the bottom, then you don't need to worry about anything. However, if you're getting results like this one, which is kind of overlapping, then that would mean that we have done some mistake in the judgment of sharp and the curved edges. And if you remember, we assumed this part to be forming the sharp edges, which is giving us this particular error with the beveled edges overlapping with each other. So to fix this, I'll first press Ctrl Z to undo this, then select this face, press X to delete, and select delete faces. After this, select the vertices over here, press E to extrude them in the x-axis like this. Now we'll be selecting this particular edge loop, press F to fill the face, and at last we'll be selecting the one at the bottom with the Alt key hold it, and again press F to fill the faces. Then if you want, you can again select the outer loop of vertices to check if we have done everything correctly or not. So apply the bevel tool, let's keep a little higher offset, and you can even use the scroll wheel to set the number of segments. And currently, none of the beveled edges are overlapping with one another, which means that we have done everything in a correct way. Now we have to repeat the same step for the front part also. So let's zoom out, then select these vertices over here, press E to extrude them in the x-axis like this, and left click to finalize. Then select these vertices at the bottom and extrude them in the x-axis like this. Then select this edge loop over here, present on the top by holding the Alt button, press F to fill the face, do the same for the middle part, fill the faces, and at last select the one at the bottom and press F to fill the faces. Then if you want, you can select the entire vertex loop by holding the Alt and the Shift key, and then apply the bevel tool by pressing Ctrl B like this. And now the next thing that we'll do will be to make some final adjustments and finish the basic shape of the pistol. So first of all, I'll go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, then select this front part, which is the barrel, go to the edit mode, enable the X-ray mode, select these vertices on the front, and I'll slightly move them forward in the y-axis like this. This will make the barrel slightly longer. And now let's return back to the object mode. Now let's add some very basic slide details to this model. So first of all, press Shift A, then go to mesh and add a cube in the scene, press G to move it and place it over here. Now go to the edit mode, let's scale it up in the y-axis like this, and also scale it down in the z-axis to reduce its height. Now let me change the angle, and I'll scale it down in the x-axis like this. Now this particular object is basically intended to be a very slight detail for the top part of the barrel. So we'll be having very basic details only, but yeah, to make it look realistic, I'll press A to select all and will apply the bevel tool. Then use the middle mouse button to increase the number of segments, and this is how it finally looks. To make it look even better, I think I should scale it down in the x-axis slightly more like this, and also move it down in the z-axis, and now it looks much better. Now I'll go to the side view, create a duplicate of this object and move it in the y-axis like this. Let's place it over here, and for this one, I'll go to the edit mode and we'll scale this up in the x-axis slightly like this. After this, I'll be creating another duplicate of this object by pressing Shift T, then right click to cancel the movement, and we'll rotate this in the x-axis by 90 degrees. Now press G to move it and we'll place it over here. To adjust its position properly so that it doesn't appear to overlap much with this object, I'll go to the edit mode and slightly scale it down in the x-axis like this. Now I'll go to the back view of the model by pressing Ctrl 1 on the numpad, enable the X-ray mode, select all these vertices on the bottom part, move them down in the z-axis like this, and left click to finalize. After this, select the object on the top, which is this one, and create a duplicate that we'll place down in the z-axis for the bottom part. And yes, do note that you need not copy each and every detail that I'm making here. You can come up with something of your own. Like for example, you can maybe add a circular ring around the barrel by using a circle or maybe a torus, or you can use cylinders to add more details. After this, I'll create one last duplicate by pressing Shift D, and we'll move it in the y-axis and place it over here. After this, I'll go to the edit mode, scale this down in the x-axis like this, and after adjusting the size and other things, we'll be working on modeling the handle of the pistol. So for the handle, I'll be adding another cube in the scene, press G to move it and place it over here. Then switch to the edit mode, let's slightly scale it up like this, then move it over here, and now I'll turn on the X-ray mode, select the bottom vertices, press G to move them down in the z-axis. Now I won't be making the handle straight, and as a result, I'll move the selected vertices slightly in the y-axis like this to create this angle between the gun's body and this handle. After this, return back to the object mode, let's change the angle, press A to select all, let's scale this down in the x-axis like this, and now it looks perfect. Now the next thing that I'll do is to select the top vertices over here, press G to move them and place them like this. Also, you can take a look at different parts of your gun's model in order to decide whether you need to change the size or maybe the location, the angles of any particular part of your pistol to make it look better or not. For example, in this particular case, I'll be selecting this front part, we'll move it forward in the y-axis, then I'll select this part which is the body of the gun, switch to the edit mode, select all the vertices present at the front part and move this forward in the y-axis. By doing this, I'm basically increasing the length or the size of the Sci-fi pistol. After this, I'll slightly move this front part or basically the barrel in the backward direction of the y-axis. And after this, we finally have a very basic shape of the gun completely ready. It's totally up to you if you want to add any more details to any part of the model, maybe some bevel effect or some subdivision, but for now, I think that I'll be going with this one only as the final version. Also, before ending, we'll be joining all these parts of the pistol together into a single object. Right now, you can see in the scene collection that we have all these cube objects in the scene. However, to join them together into a single object, we'll simply select them one by one by holding the Shift key like this, and just to ensure to select the barrel of the gun at the last, which also means that it will be highlighted with the blue color. After this, to join them together into a single object, we'll use the shortcut Ctrl J, and now in the scene collection, you will notice that all other objects will disappear other than the circle, which was basically the barrel that we selected at last. And this finally brings us to the end of this video. Now in the next video of this section, we'll be adding some more details to the Sci-fi pistol model, and we'll also cover some additional topics related to the Blender topology. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.